All right, so we are rolling. Jason, thank you so much for joining us on this. You're the second interviewee for this relaunch.
All right, pleasure to be here.
Of the Park City Real Estate Podcast. And so I think I told you this, the idea behind the podcast, we just want to make it real estate specific. So everybody who's maybe wanting to buy here, maybe wanting to sell, they can have the best sort of information available to them. And that's why I called you, man.
Cool, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for making the time. So just let's start with like your background, Jason. You're with Neo Home Loans.
Yep.
You've been doing loans for a while, but let's kind of start like where you're from, like what brought you to Park City and all that.
Yeah, love to. I grew up overseas. My dad was a geologist, so lived in Mexico, lived in Chile. We were all over the United States first 10 years of my life. And about 10, 11 years old, we moved to Golden, Colorado. And lived there until basically 4 years ago. We moved to Park City, but it was after college. I got a degree in music industry and then also graduated in 2009. So we're right in the middle of the financial collapse and I'm trying to start an arts degree basically. So that didn't go well. So I wandered into a Wells Fargo and said, look, I need a job. And so I started as a teller, slowly made my way up the ranks in about a year and a half, and was ready to leave the banking world because honestly that was just not for me. Yeah. But happened to run into the mortgage guy at the branch, and I was actually speaking Spanish with a client.
I was going to ask if you speak Spanish.
I do, yeah. I'm fluent in Spanish.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm speaking Spanish with a client. He walks up and he's like, well, that was impressive. And I'm like, that's just another language, but thank you. He said, look, man, you should come to mortgage. This would be a great avenue for you based off the other language. I can see you're a hustler. And I was like, what's a mortgage? I had no clue at that point. So yeah, he took me under his wing for like a year and a half. I learned everything I could from him, and then was out on my own for a number of years, still in Denver. And I'd been 20 years in Denver. We'd been visiting my fiance's two sisters. One lives in Salt Lake, and the other one lives up here in Heber, so really close to Park City. We've been visiting for multiple years, and just the access to the outdoors was like, man, I gotta get this.
It beats Colorado.
And yeah, Colorado has that same draw, but when you live in Denver, people think you're in the mountains, right? Yeah. But you're an hour to 2 hours to get into the mountains, right? And so we kept visiting Heber, and I was like, well, so I'm like, go right on my back door and get on the trails, right? Or go right to the river and go fishing, and 15 minutes to go skiing. So yeah, that was our draw, was just getting closer to the outdoors and just making a change from Denver. So moved out here. We started Neo Home Loans just 9 months ago. It's actually a really relatively new company. It was a new project for my boss and a few other rather large producers across the country. We were with another fairly large independent mortgage company for a few years before that. So,
okay. Yeah. So you're with Neo now. I didn't realize this. I've known you for the 4 years essentially that you've been here.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that your connection was via your fiance. Your Utah connection was via your fiance.
Yeah, her two sisters were supposed to move back to Denver, so they both ended up out here. So then we just had to follow. So, but we'd been there with my family for a number of years, and it was just time to give her chance to be close to her family. And she's got a nephew, so family draws you where you go sometimes.
There you go. Yeah, never looking back. Either,
absolutely.
Right? Yep. Awesome, yeah. So you're with Neo Home Loans now.
Yep.
And so tell us a little bit more about we can dive into interest rates, we can dive into like the products that Neo specializes in, but I know you guys just have a whole array of services, loan services that you guys offer. So tell us a little bit more about Neo and kind of your specialty with them.
Yeah, 100%. I think as I've moved from being at the bank side to an independent company and now towards Neo, which we could really think of us as a very small boutique firm in many ways, what I was looking for was how to drive more engagement back to the client and actually make the mortgage process something that is a strategy and not just giving someone debt. And the more we were at these other companies, the realizing more they're just churning through clients, right? So many people now, you've seen the Rocket Mortgage client, commercial to say click button, get mortgage, right? Could there be a worse strategy for getting yourself into debt? 15 minutes later, people spend more time picking out their restaurant and Yelp,
Yeah, so it's like that transactional.
Exactly, yeah, exacly.
Not relationship based.
And we just feel like that's a huge disservice to a client, I don't think interest rate is, so often the interest rate is not the best strategy for a mortgage, right? The lowest interest rate is not the best strategy. So again, our mission at Neo is to really try to help clients proactively, obviously during the mortgage process, but help set them up for success for the next 15, 20, 30 years. So more than just being specific to a loan product or specific to some type of market, we really just wanted to build a culture of, hey, let's actually strategize, help people for the long term instead of just sell debt. So that was kind of the mission at Neo. Up up here in Park City, haven't been here a couple of years now. There's certainly some quirks to this market that if you're going to come out here and buy a home is probably good to know. Probably one of the big pieces is so much of our market is driven by condos, by condominiums, right? And so many of those condos are based around the resort areas. So whether that's Canyons or Park City Resort and some up in Deer Valley, these condos don't meet traditional financing guidelines that are set up by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or by your jumbo investors. So you get a lot of clients come out here with their bank from back on the East Coast or from California, get out here, they get into the condotel and they can't get them done. So a big piece, if you're going to be looking at anything in the resort area, and especially on the condo side, that's where having that local presence that understands the condo market is just super impactful, because you need alternative financing products to get those kind of what we call condotels to the closing table. So
yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the main reasons I kind of wanted to have you on the podcast. Like, is we have a very kind of niche, product that we offer for people wanting to buy here, right? There's your normal single family residential, but we kind of have a lot of niche things that if you're coming from out of state, you really kind of don't know about the special financing. I mean, if you're a cash buyer, that's
right.
It's obviously irrelevant, right? There's a lot of those out there. But if you're looking for financing, there's a lot of nuances that, if you're trying to get financing via your bank, they may not, like, your bank from your state or whatever, they may not really have the same product offerings or service that you guys can have. So I'm glad you brought up the condotel like financing, because that's kind of special for Park City, having that local knowledge. Because the other thing about that is you guys can find the local appraisers that really help with that.
100%. Yeah. So often you get lenders that are, especially if they're out of state, they're just going to pull from an appraiser pool, which might be 20, 30, 40 miles away from Park City, in which case we end up with an appraiser from down in Salt Lake. Unfortunately, they don't understand the market that's happening with condotels. They really don't understand, especially if it's a new development, how if it's a new product, it probably has a much bigger bump in terms of value versus something that's 10 or 15 years dated, right? So they're using bad comps. So again, one of our specialties is being able to put our own appraiser pool together that are all local here to Park City, right? So having 3 to 4 guys that not only understand the market, but live here, right? So, when you get an appraiser like that, you're going to make sure that the value comes in where we're hoping it's supposed to, instead of being 10, 15% off. So
yeah, exactly. We really want those accurate appraisers to come in, because
100%.
This market is just crazy. We gotta have that accuracy for our clients. So now the other thing we were kind of talking about off camera before we turned them on was you also kind of specialize in self-employment loans, right?
Yeah.
Or you can kind of guide and strategize through that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, my experience is most people that come to Park City are very entrepreneurial. They're self-employed. They own their own businesses. That's why you're coming to a market to buy a multi-million-dollar home, right?
Yeah.
You've probably taken some risk and had some really good success. That also probably means your tax returns are very complicated and multi-layers of businesses. Inevitably, when you end up at the bank, when they're, your regular bank where you're trying to get your mortgage done, they're just a lot of times the money that the business making doesn't necessarily flow back to your client, to you as the individual, right? And that's where most traditional loan products are just going to get stuck, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for how the client makes money, not how the business does. So again, we have alternative loan products where we can build the income off of the bank statements in your personal accounts or the bank statements in your business accounts. Or we can even, if you're just buying it as an investment property, ditch all of the income altogether and go off the income that comes back from the appraisal through a rent schedule. So again, having those alternative loan products for clients that either A, don't even want to go through the rigmarole of providing us, hundreds and hundreds of pages of tax returns, but then also, going through all the hoops of trying to provide the profit and loss and balance sheets for 6, 7 businesses. We had a client last year who we closed, and he had 47 rental properties. And jumbo guidelines say you have to go get a lease on every single one of those properties in order to close. He's like, Jason, it's going to take me 6 months just to go get every lease, right? We have 30 days to close. So again, being able to provide something that's going to solve their problem of getting them a loan while also not totally inundating them and making it a really complex process.
Yeah, so. Wow. I like to hear that, because if there's one part that I hated about buying a home was all the paperwork that's involved, right?
Right, and this is what we come from. We came from 2006, 7, and 8, where if you could fog your mirror, or fog a mirror with your breath, or maybe write your name on an application, you get a loan. You didn't have to do both. You just had to do one, right? Now we flipped to the complete opposite, which is, there's extreme verification of all of your assets, all of your credit. They're going to dig in so hard. And again, just being able to provide easier solutions or an alternative solution if you get declined from another lender is really what we specialize well in over here. So.
Awesome. Well, you kind of brought up that, and obviously there's a draw here to Park City. So I kind of want to transition to that. Yeah. So we have our entrepreneurs that are coming here. We have, people from out of state coming here to Park City. There's so many things that Park City offers that really make our community special. And so, and I know that's one of the reasons why you got here. So I want to just kind of, if we can pivot from loans, unless there was something else you want to talk about. No,
that's great. Yeah.
So pivot from loans and just kind of get in a little bit about, because this is kind of where you and I, connect in a lot of ways, because obviously we have the real estate connection, but you and I connect in a lot of ways with what we pursue kind of in our, when we're not doing real estate, which you have some really intense runs that you post on Strava. And so tell us a little bit more about, so you're a trail runner,
yes.
for our listeners, right?
Yeah.
And you're not just a trail runner for 2 or 3 miles. You're a trail runner for you're logging 20 miles in a day sometimes, plus. And so tell us a little bit more. What got you into trail running? What are your favorite trails? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, when I moved here, that access was so easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, especially if you live in Park City or if you live down the road in Heber or Camas and the surrounding areas, inevitably there's a trail within probably 5 to 10 minutes of your house.
Yeah.
Or for me, it's right out my back door, right? So once I had that access, I was like, well, what do I do with this, right? Because coming from a big city, it was I could do this once every other week or something like that. Well, now if I got it every day, what am I going to do? Well, I just randomly signed up for a half marathon here locally in Round Valley, got that done, and I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't terrible. I guess I could go a little longer. And that just kept escalating. And now I've done, a couple 50-mile ultras and 100-mile ultras. So, being on your feet for 24 straight hours of running. But yeah, I think more than anything, it was just, I found that the more I pursued being an expert at my passion, the more that translated into being really good at my job, because I had to get really focused on my time. When I'm in the middle of and I'm hurt right now, so I haven't been able to do my last run, but typically during my training weeks, I'm spending 20 to 25 hours on the trail, right? And that's Saturdays, Sundays, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. I've got it all structured. I've got a whole schedule, but it means you have to be really deliberate about your time, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to get really focused and really good at my time management from a work perspective so that I can go pursue my passions on the back end. So, I don't know, I blended business back into your answer, which is kind of funny.
I love it.
But I think that's what Park City carries is just an amazing culture of, hey, look, it's okay if you take your phone call from the trail at 4 o'clock, right? Nobody's going to get mad that you're not sitting in the conference room, having that conversation, right? Yeah. I think, the more you engage with people about that as well, they feed off that energy. They're like, what do you mean? You're getting up at 8 to go for a trail run and then you work for a couple hours and you're doing it again? It's yeah, man, I just created my life around the work, right? So I think that's what's so cool about this culture and this community here in Park City is you just meet like-minded, active people like yourself that, we're gonna play really hard, and then we're gonna go work really hard, right? So.
Well, it's exactly, and I guess as far as that, transitioning back to business, you really had to plan it out, right? You had to be meticulous about your planning, your recovery, and not neglect the business aspect as well. And I know you're really good at doing that, right? And I laugh because there were a couple of times I called you, we were in the middle of a transaction, and you were just like, oh yeah, man, I'm just on the slopes. What can I do for you?
Again, and I think. My past life being at a bank, right, or being in a big lender, I would have felt hesitation to tell someone that I was enjoying my personal passions during work hours, right, between 8 to 5. But I think the more you're open with people and the more you share what you're doing with them, the more that you just create energy around what you're doing. Yeah. It's fun to watch other people suddenly open up and say, well, man, I not only would I like to be doing that, but that's what I do with my time, and here's how I incorporate that into my style, So I think that's just so fun. And again, it's just... The trail running for me has just been a release of, I think we carry a lot of maybe not burden, but necessarily, there's a lot of trauma that probably most people have gone through in their life. And for me, being able just to be out on a trail without any noise and no cell phones and no screens is just a great way to think through that, right? And just be able to deal with so many stuff that sits in your head all day and just be able to naturally sort through that while you're in a 4-hour run, right?
Yeah. No, there's something very cathartic about just getting out there in the trails, and then, you kind of have to hone in. Like, that's the thing, because I'm more of a road runner, but I've been doing a little bit more trail running recently, and like that, having to focus on each step essentially,
right.
so you're not, because occasionally you get these demon rocks that kind of like,
pop up and grab you, right?
Yeah, grab your foot somehow, and you're just like, you're on the ground, or, like you want to take in the views, but but then there's something very like therapeutic, kind of like about focusing on that next step, and then doing it like time and time again, and then when you're done, you're like, wow, that was amazing.
It's almost meditative, right? Like I've tried meditation in the past. I'm terrible at it. I should have a better practice because I think it has a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah.
But in many ways, being on a trail run is an exact same incorporation of that, right? You have to be focused in the present moment, and if you let go of that present, that's when you trip, fall, and hurt yourself, right? So. If you're thinking about a deal or thinking about this, you're going to fall down the trail, man. So I think, again, that's something we're so bad at in our culture and as people is we're so distracted, right? We're all on our phones and we're checking on this and our schedules are tight to every minute, right?
Yeah.
But being able to actually focus and being present in a moment makes you a much better focused person, honestly, in the long run, right? So I think that's one thing I really appreciate from trail running is just making you kind of giving me that meditative time to just think and be in the moment about something. So.
Well, and I agree. Like when I'm like not distracted on my runs, I'm able to like you said, like be in that present moment, on my runs. But then I carry that into when I'm making my sales calls or focusing on managing transactions or managing my clients, and so there really is, like, it kind of goes both ways. If you're pursuing that passion, then I think it translates really well into business. And I think, like, just in a lot of ways, it really sums up why we're here in Park City, right? We want to do that. We want to serve. We want to help our clients. And we want to enjoy, like, everything that nature has to offer, everything that Park City has to offer.
100%.
So,
yep.
So I guess just like, so you're awesome trail runner. I wish I could like log your miles and be like that.
Hey, I tried to recruit you for the 100-miler, and Esteban still said, I don't know about that. So
that's true. Maybe one day. But what are your favorite trails? What are your favorite trails to get on and run? And like, where do you log your miles typically?
Yeah, I think, again, just the access is so cool here. You can really go through a progression of what you want to pick. So if you want something, frankly, the Park City trails can get busy with people. So if you want just access and being able to stay in Park City, then going right up Park City Trail Hill and hitting up Mid-Mountain Trail is probably one of my favorite ways to go. Mid-Mountain goes from Deer Valley all the way over to canyons on a nice undulating trail that might have 1,500 in elevation climbing, so decent, but not terrible.
Yeah, so you can start at Deer Valley.
Correct, and go all the way across. And the Mid-Mountain Marathon Trail, which is one of the big races here, does that exact same profile. And it's about 25 miles across, so you can make that as long or as short as you want. There's resorts in the middle to go grab a water or a coffee if you need, or some food or some energy, right? Exactly. So if you're in Park City, Mid-Mountain Trail is really fun. If you're really looking for something very beginner-ish and easy, I really suggest Round Valley. We've ran there before. I think it's easy to take, friends from out of state who aren't used to our elevation yet, right? And let's not maybe go do 4,000 feet in climbing right off the bat, right? Round Valley is a perfect spot, especially for mountain biking. If you're a beginner, that's a great spot to go. And then I love a lot of the trails out in the Heber and Midway area, just because there tends to be a lot less density of people on the trails. So again, it's about your style. And if you really want to make a trek 30 minutes, you can get out to the Uintas and be in the middle of nowhere, which I love that too. So.
Yeah. See, I haven't gotten out into the Uintas as much, but I definitely want to, because I guess, so they have like trails and stuff, like super long trails out in the Uintas.
They do. They're more forest managed trails, right? Okay. So they're not these beautiful trails you're going to get up and park. Right. Yeah. So if you're expecting, just nice gliding trails, it's not going to be like that. But it's another experience, right? There's a lot. I mean, the Uintas, I think, has over a couple thousand little mini lakes, right? So every little trail takes you to some new magical little alpine lake, which is really fun too. So
no kidding. You can jump in, right? You gotta.
Yeah. No, that's your cold plunge afterwards, right?
Good times. Well, I know. So you're local to the area, but I know that you, I mean, you're kind of in the Heber Valley, so you know a lot of the restaurants and in that area. What's your favorite like place to go? Maybe refuel after a long.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So my wife is gluten-free, so that's a huge piece when trying to make a restaurant selection. We end up at Blind Dog all the time because the owner there is also celiac, so she's built her menu gluten-free based. So every one of their sushi rolls and the tempura is all gluten-free. So for us, that was a huge win. So we end up at Blind Dog all the time. If you're down in the Heber area, really like going to Midway Mercantile. I think they do some really good food over there, and the chefs really, really quality. So those are probably my two favorite spots. If you're looking for breakfast food, you got to go to 5 Seeds. Probably one of the best restaurants in Park City, and it's breakfast food, but it's so amazing.
Worth the wait?
Absolutely, always worth the wait. So their food's amazing. So those are probably my favorite couple spots.
Awesome. I'm glad to get those recommendations. I've heard you talk about Midway Mercantile. I couldn't remember like exactly where it was in Midway that you had talked about previously. So, and 5 Seeds, yeah, you try and go there for breakfast. It's going to be what, like?
Put your order, if you can, put your order in like 20 minutes before you show up. But yeah, if you can get in, the food's always excellent over there. It's always good after snowboarding. So.
Oh yeah. That's right. We went snowboarding this past year.
We did, yeah. I had fun taking you. So, you gonna get back out there again this year?
Yes, I'm jonesing. I'm getting a little bit better. So it's gonna be a good year. Hopefully we get some snow, right?
Man, we need snow so bad. So let's pray for a big dump. So
so I guess anything else about like the Park City lifestyle? Anything else like if you're from out of state or maybe they're trying to buy here, like you think people should know about like that?
I think we talked about access, just going back to the access point, but there is a major airport, Salt Lake City here, 45 minutes away. I think you just can't get past that. Anything for coming from Colorado, if you wanted to go somewhere special up in the mountains, that's a 3-hour drive from the airport if you're flying in there. Unless you're flying into Aspen or you're flying into Telluride, so you're probably on a different level than me anyway, so that's okay. But the airport access, I think, is just another unique part to being here in Park City that, hey, you can get home 45 minutes from the airport, so you can work a job that needs traveling, right, and still live in a mountain resort. So I think that's really, really cool. It's just the access to something major like that is awesome.
Yeah, so once you're like, say you rent a car or you call an Uber or something, there's like almost no stoplights.
Nothing.
Yeah. To like, I mean, if you're going to Jordanelle Gondola at Deer Valley, like there are no stoplights.
100%.
You just hop on the freeway and
you're right there basically, right?
Yeah, and you can, but you can, definitely access our resorts here pretty easily as well.
And you mentioned too the reservoirs. I think it's pretty sweet that we have Jordanelle, Deer Creek. I mean, Echo and Rockport are really suffering with the water shortage, but the fact that you can go get on a boat in the middle of summer and look up at the ski hills, right? I mean, there's very few places you can probably even do that. So, we brother-in-law has a bass boat, so we get to go spend our evenings out on the sunsets just fishing on the Jordanelle and to be like, well, that's 10 minutes from my house. That's not too bad, right? So again, something that's very unique to a ski resort having such big water features so close is, again, probably pretty unique to us. I can't think of any places like that.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but we kind of take it for granted these days, don't we? Like
we sure do.
We go to Deer Creek, we go to Jordanelle, just like jump on a boat, go surfing, whatever it is. And that's kind of one thing that we, especially these past 2 years since COVID hit, like we've become four season community. So,
the shoulder season that we used to have, which would be, mud season or shoulder season from April to May and, from October to November. I mean, I don't see any dip in the traffic of people the last year and a half. It's just been intense the whole way through. So
good and bad, right?
Good and bad. Yeah, absolutely. And, the big piece is so many of our second homeowners here in Park City, quickly figured out in COVID, like, well, I can just work from Park City, right? So I don't have to go home to San Francisco or Dallas or New York anymore. So I think so many of our second homeowners have just turned into primary residence owners, which has been a big shift in the traffic and the population as well.
And talking to like, like the resorts and the property management companies, like they've been booked out like crazy, like I think their numbers are in the hundreds of % more than, what they've been previously in like the slower seasons, right?
Right.
As far as bookings and everything. And then, talking to some of the other like full-time or I guess like resort type communities, lifestyle communities, they went from like having 20-30% full-time residents to like over 50% full-time residents. Right?
Yeah, 100%. And you've watched, not only have our home prices obviously skyrocketed, right? We're seeing 15 to 20% increase year over year, but rental prices are not far behind that, right? Your long-term leases are up about 10, 12% this year in the last year as well. So it just speaks to, the country in general is short homes, but we're very short here in terms of available inventory.
Oh,
so
man, yeah, I've got so many buyers, not enough sellers. You know,
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been an issue for now, a year and a half, right? As you know, and I think honestly, even prior to that, we were challenged with inventory in Park City.
Yeah.
It's been a struggle to build here for a long time, and trying to catch up there's just been more pressure being applied by everybody trying to move here. So I think it's an even further gap that we're creating in terms of what people want, the demand versus the supply that's coming behind it. So hopefully we can find a solution for that in the long run. So
yeah, and do you just to kind of wrap things up? We're running out of time. I appreciate you taking the time, but do you have like strategies that you've worked through to like help people like secure homes in this kind of competitive market? Like, you know, if they're competing against other offers or anything like that.
100%. Yeah. So recently we put together, actually it's called our Bulletproof Buyer. But there's a few things we really feel like you have to be able to execute on right now if you're going to have a successful offer, right? It's one thing to get pre-approved and go look at homes right now. You could be one of 20 offers and spin your wheels for the next 6 months, putting in 20 offers, right? Just because you're going to be one of 20 on every home. So there's a couple things you really need to execute. One, you have to be able to close quickly with your mortgage. If you're taking 35 to 40 days, which is what most mortgage lenders do, you're not going to look like a cash offer, which in our market, almost more than half of offers are cash at this point, right? So to look like a cash offer, your mortgage needs to be able to close in 3 weeks, right? So that's step number one. You got to be able to close really quickly. Part of that is being able to do a fully underwritten approval up front. Again, most mortgage lenders will only do an automated underwriting approval. Okay, so they punch all your system, or have you punch in all your system and through an application into their origination software, and then run automated underwriting, and it spits out an approval for you. Great, but it's only as good as the information you put in the system, right?
Yeah.
So if you input assets incorrectly or you didn't calculate the income correctly, you're going to have issues. So we do fully underwritten approvals with our clients, so we know the loan's already done. So lets us waive loan contingencies on a purchase application. So again, trying to more look like a cash offer. And the third piece is you need to have an appraisal gap strategy. So we talked about home prices are skyrocketing so quickly. The appraisal piece of a mortgage process, which again confirms the value of the home, very often there's a divide between what something appraises for and what it's worth today paying in the market, right? And the reason is because an appraisal is a backwards looking product. So they're looking at past historical comparable sales or comps. Well, that's the issue. When we have 1% to 2% appreciation per month, if you're going to look at a comp that's 3 months ago, you're already 6% behind what just happened, right? So when you realize your appraisal report very well might come in below what you're paying for the home, you need to have a strategy going into the offer about how you're going to overcome that, right? And so that's we can work with our clients to restructure the mortgage and figure out a strategy, which we call that appraisal gap strategy, so that going into it, you know what that strategy is. So when it happens, it doesn't become an emotional response. You already had a strategy that you executed on, and we can just pivot and go with that. So yeah, you need to be able to close quickly. You need a fully underwritten approval, and you need to have an appraisal gap strategy.
Okay, yeah, and that's a fantastic way to navigate this competitive market if there's multiple offers and
which there are in basically every house, right?
Yeah, if it's priced right, it's going to go quickly. So so yeah, you really and to guide them through that process, the buyers through that process is really excellent. Well. Jason, we're out of time, but I appreciate.
Hey, that went fast.
I know it did go by fast. But I appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully, we can have you back, talk more.
Thanks, man.
Talk more
appreciate
about
it. It's been
what you're
great.
doing. All right, yeah, appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.